What's the biggest mistake you've made because you were horny? 1996, my girlfriend and I, both 21 years old. We didn't live together. I lived with my grandparents, she lived with her strict Catholic parents. It was impossible to have at her house, and not that easy at mine. We were both horny, and I came up with a plan. I had a job driving a box van delivering wheelchairs, hospital beds, medicine, etc. I was allowed to take my box van home every night. Over the weekends I had off. So I had my younger brother help me disassemble my futon and pass it to me through our bedroom window. I set the futon up in the back of the box van, put a CD player back there, some incense and candles and whatnot. Tried to make it kinda, I don't know, not like the back of a box van, I guess. Drove over to pick her up one evening around 8 p.m. We told her parents we were going to the grocery store real quick, and we'd be back soon. I drove out to some fig orchards instead. I decided to drive the box van down between the rows of fig trees and get deep back in the orchard so nobody would see the large box van from the road. As we were getting further back down one of those rows, it started to get muddy. Me having no experience driving in mud, I thought you just gunned it and kept on gunning it till you got through the mud. Yeah, so that didn't work. It just got worse and worse. Eventually, we careen off between two trees about 70 feet off the road. We're dead stuck in the mud. I get out, shin deep in mud. She gets out to help me. We're both muddy as fav. There's no getting this box van out. We hike out of this orchard into the nearest neighborhood. No cell phones in these days. We begin knocking on doors of the houses in the neighborhood asking people if we can use their phone. Nobody wanted to answer the door. I guess they were in fear of a home invasion, I don't know. It took quite a bit of knocking and walking to find some youngsters in front of their parents' house who let us use their phone. I called a tow truck, and it took a very long time for it to come out. Upon arriving, the driver told me he'd have to put straps on the fig trees to anchor to, and if he broke any trees, I'd have to pay the farmer thousands of dollars probably. Fortunately, no trees broke. He was able to finally get my box van unstuck and out of the field at around 11 p.m. or so. It costed me $440.0, which I didn't have on me. And I had to call my uncle to borrow it from till I got paid. The whole damn thing was such a mess. I got her home close to midnight and had exactly zero that day. She never even saw the futon or had any idea what we were doing until I told her my failed plans as I was driving her home. That girl stuck it out with me, dumb decisions and all. We were married for 14 years. Our children are 23 years old now. We divorced in 2013, but she's still like my best friend, so it's a fairly happy ending kinda story. What a classy guy, right? What woman wants to bang in the back of a box van? Horniness makes you do some dumb. Probably my most embarrassing moment was on my work computer, family business, so nothing locked, and it was a super slow day, and I was alone. Anyways, was doing a classic 3 minutes Facebook check and scrolled down for a second and saw the news post about Adriana Chechik injuring her back in a foam pool. Figured top comments on that would be golden. Read one funny one that said, her and her scene with performer, can't remember, is still GOAT. Never heard of said performer, so I got curious and Google her. Of course, photos never do justice. Had to see the performance, you know? So I clicked a random video, quick glance, and thought meh, and was about to close the tab before I noticed my mouse twitch on the screen. What was that? No, that wasn't mouse error. That was someone. Then within seconds, I realized the accountant who taps in remotely to finish work came in at that exact moment that I had a browser open for less than 60 seconds. The worst wart was I could have sworn I had all those remote services off. But she tried to tap in for over an hour and must have did something to wake Splashtop. Probably had it on some type of standby mode. She even called earlier, but I saw a random number and was speaking with the client and ignored it. Anyways, decision time. Do I call her and play it off as nothing or apologize? Naturally, as a fearful 28-year-old, I play off as nothing. I call. No answer. Then a few minutes later get the call back and her words after exchanging hellos, "Are you finished with whatever you were doing?" still burns me. Let my ex-boyfriend dry hump me for an hour on a bench outside after summer school. The bad news, This bench behind our school was also beside a swimming pool, where parents were taking their children for swim lessons. Eventually, a staff member came out and yelled at us for being inappropriate. I still have shame flashbacks today, over 10 years later. This happened a couple of months ago. I was horny. I went to masturbate in the bathroom cause I was staying in a hostel. I was having a good time. Then I heard a glass window breaking and me looking down to see fucking blood pumping out of my fucking dick, like I opened a water tap. Turns out, some dumb fevks were playing cricket and hit the ball straight onto the glass window and broke it. The glass shard fell right on my erect penis. Thankfully, the bleeding stopped a few minutes after I lost my erection. Had to run to the emergency clinic. Thankfully, I didn't lose my boyfriend's sister slept with a couple guys she met on Craigslist. I thought it was hilarious that she was finding guys off the same site you'd find a moldy lawn couch for $50. One guy she hooked up with waited for her to fall asleep after the deed, and then stole her car. I thought for sure she'd learn her lesson after that and stop hooking up with guys off Craigslist. But a couple months later, she hooked up with another guy that stole her PlayStation. It was year 2000 and I was 14. I finally got my own desktop computer, one of those big plastic mammoths that connected at the speed of dial-up. I stayed up long hours chatting to random people on Yahoo. It was there that I met James. James was a year older than me, and he was from England. He was classically handsome and witty. I sent him a photo of one of my older sister's friends because I was pretty tomboyish and plain at that age. We ended up talking every day, as often as we could. If I recall, back then it was not free to voice chat with a microphone. Or maybe the connection wasn't great. Either way, we began talking on the phone, but my family was poor, so he always had to call me, and it was very expensive. Did I mention he was from England? Just the sound of his voice made me swoon. I could have listened to the kid talk all day. One day, I accidentally took my friend's purse after a school function, which was tangled in my jacket. I opened it, and inside was a phone card. This was back in the day of landline phones, and with this card you could dial a number from any phone, and have it billed to your home phone. If I used this card, it would be billed to my friend's home phone. So what did I do? I called James. I talked to James for several months using this phone card. We had intense, uninhibited phone at all hours of the day and night. I mean, we role-played. We used items from around the house. We took grainy pictures for each other in which I painstakingly hid my face because if you recall, he believed I was one of my sister's pretty friends. We got fully into it. I don't know why I never thought this would catch up to me. Maybe it's true what they say that brains aren't fully formed in the teenage years. Or maybe I was just blinded by his flirty, filthy British accent. After the first month, I thought we were in the clear. So we talked for a couple more, and then hit the fan. My friend's parents got the phone bill to the tune of $10,000. They sued. They ended up paying down a bunch of it, and I had to pay restitution on the rest. I was forbidden to see my friend again, until we were both legal adults, and they couldn't stop us anyway. It took me several years to pay off the restitution with my after-school job at McDonald's. Totally stupid. But that guy buttered my bread. 8/10 would probably do again. Got a porn site membership and forgot about it. 4 months and like $150 later realized my faffed up. The front end's paywalls were all different themes, different porn sites, companies, but the back end content was all from the same pool of smut. He said many people had accounts on most of the sites, paying separately, multiple times monthly for the same thing, and they would forget that they subscribed to the sites too. Easy money. Sometimes, they'd get calls from the wives asking about what these CC charges were for. Awkward. I was staying in a backpacker's dorm with shared bathrooms. I had a thing for this guy staying there as well, and he was into me, but well, it's hard to find a private spot when you both are staying in 10-bed dorms. So, we did what any horny 20-something would do. We fooled around in the shower. It's worth noting here that we had just switched from a different floor to this one and knew no one. So there we were. Me standing in the shower, water running, him below me, keeping busy. Next minute, we hear a German accent yell outside the door, "Dude, you're flooding the hallway." In his concentration and my preoccupation, we had managed to block the drain. We came out of the bathroom, and yep, The hallway was flooded, so we spent the next hour or so mopping the hallway and introducing ourselves to the neighbors. Oh yeah, and it leaked in the floor below, so we also had to tell the front desk. I got asked to dog sit at a friend's parents' house. She set me up with the blow-up mattress in the living room. I got a little bored, so I called my girlfriend and we proceeded to have video right there in the living room. I got a text the next day saying there are cameras in the living room, and they are just for keeping an eye on their dog while they're away, but if I wanted to, I can turn them the other way. I was pretty embarrassed after that one. For the people who don't understand why I would do that at someone else's house, whether I knew about the camera or not. Well, my girlfriend is rarely horny, and so when she called me and started talking dirty, I couldn't help myself. Also, other people have pointed out that whether I had the or not doesn't matter because I was changing in front of the camera regardless. The thing just added more embarrassment. My sister was getting married to my now brother-in-law when I was 18. I was his best man. We were finishing up getting ready at the church, and I was in one of the back rooms trying to get my tie tied. His younger stepsister, who was my age, had been helping out all day. And the night before, she was really cute, and I had been flirty all weekend. She came into the room to get something, and I asked her if she knew how to tie a tie the right way. She came over to help, got all up close, and then was giving my the Y eyes. It just popped off. We locked the door and got down right before the ceremony. Then later at the reception, her dad found out later and lost his. He wasn't married to my brother-in-law's mom, but they'd been together a long time, so I guess she wasn't technically his stepsister. Whatever, he hated me. Every time our families hung out, he would be ahead. It ended with them breaking up, and he moved with his daughter to Missouri. In college, it was a random weeknight. I had started talking to my first girlfriend again. We dated in middle school, freshman year of high school several years prior. She was on trimesters or something, so she didn't have classes that week and was at her parents' lake house alone. Truly, my parents are gone text, and 5 minutes later my mind was made up, and I was on my way to the car. I drove 2.5 hours one way, in the middle of the night, in February, Upper Midwest, to meet up with this girl and seal the deal that preteen me set in motion like 7 years prior. It was just alright. What my pent-up forgot about was that I had a mandatory chemistry lab at 8 a.m. the next day. It was 3 a.m. when the post-nut clarity hit. While we were smoking some post-weed, I ended up pulling an all-nighter. We banged again and then drove back to my school. On zero sleep, about 6x the healthy limit of caffeine, and groggy AF from her Thai weed, I rolled into the chem building. Sit there for 10 minutes before I realized no one else is there. This was pre-smartphones, and most people didn't carry their laptops to classes. So I hopped on a computer to verify the schedule, and see the email from the prof that the lab is moved to the next week. She sent it 2 minutes after I followed my second brain out the door the night before. Took an escort from a bar in Shanghai back to my hotel. Got carried away after she started give me a blowjob, and lost all sense of rational thought. No condom. She hopped on top and we had no condom. She stayed the night and we proceeded to repeat 5 or 6 times, and had zero protection. Spent the next 3 months thinking about every tickle and twitch in my wiener, convinced it was an STI. Went for monthly STI checks, convinced that I had just committed suicide by HIV. Luckily, no positive results. 10 years later, and I think I'm clear. Bad result was that I now look back on it as the hands-down best dirty raw fuckfest of my life. She was gorgeous and amazing in bed. Unknowingly became a Thai MILF's boy toy in Thailand. My Thai friend brings me for my first Thai massage, and we're each assigned a room. This plus-size Thai lady in her 40s walks in and the massage starts. Everything was going so well, I was so relaxed, and then I got an erection. As we were finishing up, the masseuse whispered some flattering words as she caressed and brushed her hands against my inner thighs and erected penis. Then she says she haven't had in a while and asked if we could do it here quietly. I said sure, thinking it's a one-night stand thing. So she pulls out a condom and we started facking hard. After my friend and I were done and ready to leave, we go get our bill and mine read. Thai massage $10. Extra service $100. My friend looks at my receipt and starts giggling. Then the girls at the counter also starts giggling and whispering in Thai to each other. My friend translated their conversation to mean something like, "Annie must be so proud and happy this handsome young man was willing to pay to have with her, who would have thought?" In the early days of the internet, somewhere around the year 2000, I would often stay at a buddy's house for the weekend. I was 15 and had been madly in lust with Britney Spears since her rise to fame. My buddy's stepdad worked for the local telecom and thus had access to the highest of high-speed connections. Late at night, after my friend would fall asleep, I would sneak into his family's den and search for random porn on his family's desktop with wanton disregard and a lot of ignorance towards malicious links, spam, and other shady internet shenanigans. One night, after nearly locking down their computer with an endless stream of pop-ups, I saw an ad promising free access to the newly uncovered Britney Spears blowjob video. My mind and penis exploded. I had to see it. And now, I followed the rabbit hole, page after page, click after click, only to discover that I would need a credit card to verify my age as over 18. I was livid. By the next day, after hard resetting their PC several times and trying to scrub any evidence of my misdeeds, I had hatched a plan. I would steal my older sister's credit card info and enter it on the website. She would surely never notice the 99-cent fee, and I would be in Britney BJ paradise. So, being completely blind of the dangers of the internet, that's exactly what I did. The next weekend, in the wee hours of the morning, I searched for the video and came across the very same link as the week before. I entered all of her card info. I of course wasn't going to use our own home phone number, so I entered the only other number I could remember by heart in my horny stupor, my work's phone number. Immediately upon submitting my info, my sister started getting hit with huge charges, originating from all over the world. On my end, I was hit with the cavalcade of redirects and pop-ups. I must have spent a couple hours frantically searching for my promised video. As daybreak hit, I admitted defeat as I again hard reset their computer. By lunchtime, my sister's bank had called our house about the charges, and they gave her the phone number I entered. Obviously, she and my mom figured it out quick. I confessed as soon as I was confronted. My mom spent that evening convincing my sister to press charges on me. On Monday morning, she drove me to our local police station and dropped me off. I had to walk in and confess everything, alone. As a minor, there really wasn't much they could do other than a couple hours of paperwork. Our school cop then drove down to the station to pick me up and deliver me to school. We arrived during class change, and hundreds of my classmates got to see me walking in late, escorted by the police, straight to the principal's office to explain my tardiness. The rest of the school day is a blur. My sister's card company canceled the dozens of charges and issued her a new card, though the process took forever and was a major hassle. Our relationship has been strained ever since, and I notice even now, 20+ years later, that she keeps her purses and wallets safed away when she comes to my home for holidays with my family. My mom sent me on a years-long shame spiral about porn and masturbation. That culminated in a couple of months' worth of sessions with some youth pastor that my aunt suggested to her. I had to sit and talk to this total stranger about all of the private thoughts and feelings I was experiencing, with an umbrella of Jesus, who I already didn't believe in, on top of me. The entire thing faffed me up. I'm almost 38 now, twice married, with 3 children. My oldest is nearly the age I was when I did this massively stupid thing, and I am still faffed up from the after effects. I'm weird about my body, weird about masturbation, weird about so much. It adds such a burden to my relationships, and I still never got to see that video. God bless you, Britney, you blowjobbing. I had to be in my early teens, if not pre-teens. This was a time when phone chat lines were advertised on BET and VH1. My dad worked 2 jobs, one in the daytime and one overnight, so I had quite a bit of alone time. My curiosity piqued, and I decided to hit up some of these chat lines. In all honesty, I can't remember any of the convos I had on there. I don't even remember if I got off at all, but I do remember that I was on there a lot. Well, The day the phone bill came in the mail wasn't a very good day, if you can imagine. The charges were huge, and my dad was livid. There was the yelling and screaming, of course, but to top it off, he ordered me some new bowling shoes as a gift that just came in that day. He was seething the whole day. The car ride out to the bowling alley was awkward AF. But when we picked up the shoes is when it came to a head. We were back in the car after picking the shoes up, and I was just trying to disappear at that point and not be noticed at all, so it totally slipped my mind to say thank you. Well, that set him off. He yelled, "Motherfucker, you're not even gonna say thank you." And then he reached over and punched me in the face. My head bounced off the passenger side window and proceeded to say thank you profusely. Till this day, I've never been punched that hard by anyone, ever. Have you ever been hit so hard in the face that your eye goes lazy? I didn't even know that could happen. For the next 3 days, whenever I blinked, my left eye would straighten up. But if I held it open, it just started to roll to the left. I was afraid that would be permanent. But I didn't want to tell him about it cause he'd probably just say that was what I deserved or something. Luckily, it cleared up after day 3. I know this was child abuse now. There's several instances where my parents probably could have recognized I was a kid exploring his budding duality in unhealthy ways and could have steered me in the right direction, but they didn't. And now I'm in therapy. I just realized I still have those shoes. So there was this girl I matched with on Tinder. We hit it off, and I was in a dry spell looking for something real, so we arranged to meet up. I didn't need anything fancy, so when she suggested her place, I was fine with it. Plus, the address was in the nice part of town. She said she had a hot tub and told me to bring my shorts. Hell yeah. When I got there, yellow flag number 1 was that I knew her dad already from choir, so I played it cool. Thought I might duck out when things got slow. Yellow flag number 2 was that she invited a couple of her friends over. Annoying, we wouldn't get a night to ourselves. But I let it slide again, thinking I would duck out if things got slow. This was maybe in mid-March of that year, so hot tubbing was windy, but fairly nice for a while. By this hour the alcohol was setting in. It felt a bit like a party. Her friends were cooler than she was, and somehow the whole hot tub thing turned into a bit of group, all being done with underwater activity, because she lived with her parents and they would occasionally come outside. Eventually, it got too cold, and we all went inside. I had hoped the group would continue, but the other two said they needed to head out. So while we were all in varying states of nude and clothed, I said I should probably do the same. This made my date upset, and she tried to convince me to stay. I told her I had to be up early the next morning, which was true. I had a morning session of breakfast and D&D with my friends. She still didn't like it and tried to convince me until out of nowhere she slapped me hard across the face, knocked my glasses clean off. Her friends freaked out, started telling her to chill out, and she just laughed. The kind of panicked laugh someone does when they're not sure what they're doing. They finished getting ready to leave and dipped. But I was still mostly nude on account of my date having tossed some key articles of my clothing around the room. While I was hunting them down, she had a full-on breakdown, sobbing uncontrollably in front of me. It turns out she has a paralyzing fear of the wind. At this point, I'm in the middle of holding this woman who moments before had slapped me unprovoked, and before that was concealing a hot tub orgy from her dad consoling her. What the fuck? It took me more than another hour, maybe 2, to finally get myself out of there without the continued violence I was now afraid of. But under the condition, I have no idea how she got me to agree to this. It's like a fever dream, that she got to go with me, and I would distract her from the wind. She knew I had to be up early and was along for the ride. We got to my place, and I tried to get her to go right to bed, but she wanted to faff around, which meant a lot. It meant playing music, messing with my electric piano, and eventually more. She wanted anal and my hackles were raised, so I told her no. All sorts of images of badly prepared anal with a borderline stranger flashing through my mind. She literally begged, tried to convince me. I kept saying no, and eventually we finished and finally went to sleep, like 4 a.m. at this point. Morning comes, and I somehow wake up in time to get breakfast going for D&D. Friends supposed to arrive between 8:30 and 9 a.m. I didn't have time to take her home, so guess who stayed through the entire 4-hour session? Eventually took her home and gradually ghosted her.